Press the bell icon on the YouTube app to never miss a video from Newslaundry.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Jayashree and welcome to this Newslaundry webinar. So we're now 7 months and counting into the global pandemic. So we'd like to focus on the impact of COVID on various industries. So today we'll be looking at the restaurant industry, and to take this discussion forward, we're joined by two veterans. So I'll do a quick round of introductions and then we can get started. So our first panelist is Ritu Dalmia, who's been in the business for decades. She's a very familiar face on television. She's a celebrated chef, and she has 3 restaurants in India, 3 in Italy, and a catering outfit. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it used to be a lot more, but you are very updated, I have to admit. So you're absolutely correct.
Great. So our second panelist is AD Singh, who is the founder and managing director of the Olive Group of Restaurants. So AD has been in the hospitality industry for over 28 years, and some of the restaurants you'd associate with him include Olive Bar and Kitchen and Soda Bottle Opener Wala. So thanks very much for joining us, Ritu and AD, and we really appreciate you taking the time out for this.
Okay, so it's a pleasure talking to Ritu. I don't see enough of her.
Great.
Well, you're in big trouble, Jayashree. This is going to be one hell of a session.
Great. It's always a good thing to hear before the webinar starts.
So. You know, I know AD for even before he was in the restaurant business. I still remember you were writing for Midday, if I'm not mistaken, AD, that time? Or something. Right. You were definitely writing for someone.
Yeah. I used to write for Afternoon and then MOS.
Yeah, something. When you came to Barcelona for the first time, and you know, I thought some fancy journalist has come, and I was shitting in my pants, okay, only to realize he was a sweetie pie and I had nothing to worry about. So I saw him very often when he would come to the first restaurant that I had. That was so many, well, he had a little bit more hair that time, but the smile is still the
same. So this is like a friendship of over like 30 years.
Yes, yes.
Great.
And you know, Jayashree, you're a kid, you don't realize it, but what Ritu was doing those days was incredible for my generation to see places like that coming up in our own country, you know. We had so little when we grew up, so it was incredible.
It must be
what he was trying to say is that she was really stupid to do things before they were. This is a nice way of putting it.
Okay, so I'll start off with a few statistics on how COVID has hit the restaurant industry so far. So I think a recent estimate said 1 in 4 restaurants in India will probably never open again. There was another one that said at least most dine-in restaurants will lose at least 50% of revenue this year. And also about 22 lakh people employed in the industry will lose jobs. But apart from the statistics, I was wondering for you personally, in the last 3 or 4 months, what has business been like? What have things been like? So AD, would you like to start off?
Sure. So yes, I think that the longer this goes on, the more likely that the statistics you said, 1 in 4 restaurants never opening, becomes more and more of a grim reality.
Right.
And that is awful because, as you know, our sector employs, it's amongst the biggest employers in the country directly, and at least double that indirectly. And the impact of these places closed down is just unimaginable for the workforce. For all of us, it's been very, very tough. Because firstly, of course, the worry with the virus, and then we were entirely decimated by the total overnight lockdown, no revenues at all, and our sector by and large runs fairly with very low reserves, if any reserves at all. We've had a couple of tough years, so even a company like ours, which is fairly conservative, was very stretched in a level of debt, and then got hit by COVID. So I had no reserves to help pay our people, etc., which was much needed.
Right.
Now with the virus continuing for so long and the parallel lockdown taking so long to ease up, it's been horrible for everybody because there's no cash flow at all. Our stocks in our restaurants have all perished. Our employees, ourselves, our vendors, our landlords, our investors, are all getting into more and more of a difficult situation the more the weeks that pass. And it's becoming, very, very difficult presently.
Right.
Also, as we're coming back to, we've had almost no support from outside the industry, but we'll get to that later in this discussion.
Right. So now that you're starting to open up restaurants across cities and things, so how do you reconcile like the urgent need to resume business along with the risk that you run with people in a closed space, masks off during a pandemic? So how have preparations for that been? Ritu?
So just to add to your first question, I just want to add, I think your estimate 1 into 4 might be a little optimistic.
Right.
If you actually count the restaurants which are not recognized restaurants or not part of NRAI bodies or street vendors or smaller vendors, I think you're talking about much larger numbers than 1/3, because that's number one. And secondly, I mean, just to give you an example of myself, I mean, I'm not very proud to say it, but the reality is we have been so crippled between February, Delhi lockdown started on 15th of March. Between 15th of March till now, I've actually had to shut down 3 of my restaurants permanently. So out of 7, if I've shut down 3, and for simple reason, because it's just not about cash flow. It's also about going forward. It still doesn't look all that rosy or going back to the same levels as pre-COVID, I think for a fairly long time to come. Right. Whereas talking about preparation for how to tackle COVID, I think the restaurant industry was really very quick to prepare itself to ensure that the hygiene level, sanitization level, etc., masks, making sure that distances are maintained in the kitchen, QSR codes, etc., for the menus. But you see, there's also a very strange part which we have noticed. Some of the clients are just not willing to accept it. They have a problem getting their temperature checked. They have a problem wearing a mask. They have a problem using the sanitizer. And sometimes it's very funny. I mean, someone comes with a driver and says, orders a takeaway, says, send the food with the driver. He says, mere temperature lene ki kya zarurat hai, mere driver ka le lo. Oh God. So there's also a very big, how shall I say, mental block that there is. So I think the industry is very well prepared for it. But the question is, when will the actual confidence come back of people coming down and coming back to eat? It's not they don't trust the restaurants. It's not that they don't trust the hotels or whatever it may be. It's just the fear. There's a deep fear it's in some ways quite paradoxical and ironical. On one hand, we have this whole group of people who say, we don't give a shit. We won't get our temperatures checked. We won't wear masks. We will not follow any of the rules. And on the other hand, there is this deep rooted fear that people have. And I mean, I just did a webinar a few weeks ago, and someone mentioned it very correctly. Cooked food cannot carry COVID.
Yeah.
All right. You cannot get COVID through food. So it's also, there are a lot of myths, etc., which is flying about, but it's not going to be, this year has been a total washout. And I think next year also one has to be prepared till middle of the year. Nothing is going to happen to take things forward. And what's the worrying part really more than anything else is that, let's say even by December, things become normal again. Right. The losses that one has incurred between March and December is going to take a long time to recover, because don't forget, in restaurant, the cost of product is not so high. It's 24-25%. What is the main cost is the running operational cost, which is personnel, rent, excise, etc. Yeah. And when you have a 7-month zero revenue and these humongous costs on your head, how long will it take for you to recover? So of course, the confidence is quite low, not only of the investors, of everyone, because I mean, in fact, I was very pissed off with a man who I have great admiration from, our ex-RBI governor, who made a statement that no one should invest in a restaurant business. The truth is, if I had the money right now,
I would be the first to invest in restaurant business, because whenever things do become normal again, there will be such a big difference in demand and supply that I'm sure I'll do well. But when you look at it from an outsider's point of view, the confidence is low, and the costs or the losses one has incurred in these 7 months, it's not going to be something that you can recover in 6 months.
Yeah. This actually circles to my next question, because I think you've been quite vocal about how you feel the government has provided little or no support.
Little?
No
can you
support.
remove the word little from there?
Yeah, I think in an interview a couple of months ago, you said the government was actually shutting its eyes to the entire problem.
Yeah, it's and blatantly, not even making an excuse for it.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you and AD, was there anything that happened? I mean, was there any support to your workers, to businesses?
Zero. At least I don't know about AD, but we as a business, we have had 0 rupee support from the government.
Right.
And the biggest joke for me was this MSME loan scheme. Okay, so we thought, great, at least the MSME loan scheme has come out, and we under 100 crore would be eligible for MSME loan scheme.
Right.
And our bank told, and so far we had 0 debt. We had no bank loans, none whatsoever. And our company, which was doing close to 60 crore, 70 crore turnover, we were eligible for 8 lakh rupee loan.
Okay.
And so I just told them to shove it up, because that 8 lakh was not going to really help me much. But it's the first time that I'm actually out knocking at every bank's door to give me some loan. And I realized that even the banks don't have a clear instruction from the government. So we have 0 support. And what is the ironical part here, Jayashree, is, which I've also said before, here in Italy, we have support. Not as much support as I would love, but we always want more. This is human nature. So about 50% of the salaries for March, April, May, June was paid by the government. 50% was paid by us. The rents, they took a very clever stand. They said, okay, no reduction in rent. We all pay the rent, but the government gave 60% as tax credit to be used again, ESI, PF, any form of government taxes that were due, one could use for it. So in reality, we ended up paying, let's say, 40% of the rental. There was a cashback. What they did was, they saw what was the April sale last year and April sale this year. And the difference, the government gave a 10% cashback within a week's time.
Right.
Okay, these are little drops in the ocean. But today, let's put it this way, that if my need is 100, or if my need was 100 in Italy, now I'm worrying, where the hell shall I organize 70 from? Because 30 has been taken care of. What's happening in India? There is no salary support, of course. There is no tax support. I haven't heard any news about not paying the license fee, etc. There is no support on rental payments. There is no support on bank loans or cash flow. There's 0.
Yeah.
So my worry in India is, my need was 100 in March or April. That need, instead of turning 70, like in Italy, that need has turned into 150 by now, because by not being able to fulfill that initial need, all I'm doing is increasing my debt levels. So it's a really difficult and not a good situation to be in. So if you ask me honestly, I'm not even now, I mean, earlier I was vocal about it. I was throwing tantrums, blah, blah, blah. But at the moment, I have reached a point where I know there will be nothing from them. And I'm stupid to expect something from the government. And what they don't realize, which is really sad, is that restaurant industry hires so many people. You're talking about a huge, and many of them are actually out of job today. I would say more than 8 lakhs, 9 lakhs people from the restaurant industry must be already out of job. So if they have turned a blind eye, then I'm stupid to even think that there will be some support. And I know now whatever needs to be done, I will have to do it on my own strength and own support. And who knows, maybe I will stop paying taxes from next year because they don't deserve it.
Right. So, AD, do you think so as well?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. All this time through the lockdown, many of us restaurateurs who have a voice, who people listen to a bit, have been spending actually a lot of time reaching out to the government through various bodies and directly to help them understand why they should support the industry. We were actually fine with not even looking for any support for businesses, but firstly, we wanted support for our employees.
Right.
Because many of them are the breadwinners for their families. And the sheer numbers of that are just so large that you can't ignore them and abandon them. Unfortunately, as Ritu said, and to our great disappointment and surprise, there has been to date no financial support from the government. There has been some relaxations. For example, they've allowed employees to access their own PF accounts and take a limited amount of money out. But there's actually been no input from the government financially to our employees or ourselves. What we are pushing, and what I will continue to push the government at least, one is relaxations in terms of license fees for renewals, etc., statutory fees. That's in their hands. And even that will be of some level of support to the industry.
Yes.
And secondly, what I'm at least personally very indignant about is there's a scheme called the Employee State Insurance Scheme, where month after month for many years, for all our employees under 21,000, the company has contributed some amount to this scheme, and the employee has contributed a little lesser amount also to the scheme directly.
Right.
That corpus today, we believe, is about 94,000 crore. What it's used for is to provide free medical services for these employees, which is laudable and must continue. But because of the difference between how much we contribute and what's being used, there is a huge corpus that could be given to the employees directly by ESIC, which would be invaluable to them at this time. And if you have an insurance scheme, it's for a bad time. We've never seen a worse time, and hopefully we'll never see a worse time again. So this is the right time for the government and the SIC to pay directly back to the employees whose account details they have, who've contributed to build this up. Some part of this corpus will be invaluable to them and their families. Ritu is saying that she's very disappointed, has actually given up. Yes, it's true, it's been so many months. Most of the industry is despairing of getting any support. But I, for one, do hope through webinars like this to be able to reach the right ears. We as businesses are saying, okay, don't give us support right now, but at least help our employees out who are the very fabric of our economy. It'll prove to be of great support in lifting the economy back up a little, and to them and their families. And I'm hopeful that that could still come through.
Great.
They did announce a scheme, so I think our words are reaching the ears. They did announce some benefits, but only for those who were laid off. That is not in their interests or ours. We want support for them who through lockdown have suffered so badly. Give them the support and let them keep their jobs. Incentivize us actually to keep them at work, not to lay them off so that they can get some benefits. I do hope that that will come through in the future.
I'm assuming a large portion of the workers in the industry itself are some of those migrant workers who had to go back to their hometowns. So, and now that they're all coming back, but even then there's the question of what are they coming back to? So you were saying that the government could have tapped into that corpus, but you're not sure that would happen anytime soon? Like any form of, I'm saying for the migrant workers who have left and now returning, what do you think lies before them in the future?
I think that some percentage of our migrant workers are choosing to stay home for various reasons. Fear of what they're coming back to, fear of the virus, comfort with their families and safety. So while we don't know, as Ritu feels, more than 1 in 4 restaurants close, I think maybe something like 15, 20% of workers probably won't come back for a while. So I hope that there'll be some balancing out and that there will be enough jobs for almost everybody. We, for one, are getting ready to get all our teams back and give them work and start again. Probably at reduced salaries, but at least I feel getting the cash flow going will be of immense use to them, to our vendors, to our landlords, to everybody.
Right.
And we're working hard to get that going again.
So are you seeing what Ritu mentioned in your restaurants as well, which is some customers don't want to follow protocol, wear masks, get their temperatures checked, things like that?
There are definitely some customers, and I guess we're reading about that around the world.
Yeah.
A lot of people are upset and are rebelling. However, I would say that my opinion, that's a little different to Ritu's. By and large, I'd say over these 6-7 months, both restaurants and people have realized what they need to understand about this virus and are now sort of forming a way to coexist with the virus and get on with life again, whether it's work or on their personal time. And mostly, therefore, they are being careful with masks, with social distancing, with sanitization. And that, I think, is going to be the way for a while. I read an interview with Adar Poonawala of the Serum Institute, which has a lot of credibility, and we're all looking up to them as possibly one of the leading institutes that provide a vaccine. And to my surprise, they are looking to get 100 million doses of a vaccine out at a reasonable price by, and this is what surprised me, by December 21.
Right.
Which means that they are spending huge amounts of time, effort, and money on an assumption that this need will be there in very large numbers over a year from now. I would think that's a probability, and I am sort of gearing our company, my own thinking, to think that way. We need to imagine that the virus will be there at a reasonable size till that time, and we must see how to make our restaurants get as viable as they can with the virus still lingering in the background.
I was reading somewhere that for restaurants, delivering orders is not really a good way to sustain business, right? I think most money would come from dine-in. So when you're saying we're imagining that we will live with the pandemic, how do you see restaurants changing? I mean, would you move towards like one of those sushi trains where it's mostly contactless service? What are the kind of ideas that you think we'd have to come up with?
Let Ritu start. I'll follow up.
Sure.
So we didn't have a choice. As I said, restaurants have been shut. Some opened only in July. And we also, apart from restaurants, have a huge catering team. Right. And of course, all the events were cancelled. So we didn't have much of a choice. So we came up with something called the do-it-yourself kit way back in end April. And the whole idea was at least to keep some people busy for at least some days. That worked. We are doing a fairly decent number for with the do-it-yourself kit. We started only with the 3-kilometer zone, but now we've reached Noida, Gurgaon. But saying that, it's still a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
You see, it can only work. It's great. Problem with delivery with our kind of food is that it doesn't have too long a shelf life. If I send a fresh pasta and you're going to reheat it at home 1.5 hours later, it's not going to taste like what you would have at the restaurant. So there is, for us, delivery is not my favorite model, mainly because of the kind of food that we do. Yeah. Do it yourself. I like it because the guests have to work a bit, but at least they get it fresh off the pan onto the table. Is that the model forward for us and the main model? No, it is not. I'm at the end of the day a very boring, old school restaurateur who thinks a good meal is only enjoyed when you're sitting in a restaurant, being pampered by me, when I can sell you a very expensive bottle of wine, when I can, so dine-in, I don't think delivery or do-it-yourself can ever take place of dine-in. Yeah. The reality is, yes, till the dine-in doesn't come to some levels, we all have come up with these brilliant ideas or trying to do something. Our favorite word in the industry has become reinvent yourself, think out of the box. Well, the box is only that bloody big that there is no space after this to think out of the box. I mean, honestly, sometimes I really feel that I must be the most stupid human being on the world because I can't think of anything more, and sushi trains are definitely nowhere on my radar, so that doesn't even qualify. But saying that, as I said, you cannot ever, with all the gizmos in the world, saw an amazing TED talk about a 3D meal where you have a piece of paper which looks like a meal, you taste it, it tastes like food. But none of that can ever take the real experience of going out with your friends, with your family, and having a great meal. Because dine-in, eating out, it's just not about the food. It's about the whole experience of bonding, having your old favorite waiter, remembering your drink, having some laughs, meeting some people that you knew in the restaurant. And how the hell can that ever be same experience you can have with delivery or do it yourself? So as I said, I'm sorry, even if I sound stupid, but I have no bloody ideas. I have no other out of the box thinking. I am just going to wait till the old-fashioned dine-in is back where it should be.
Right. That deserves a round of applause. Yeah.
Yes.
So Jayashree, I'd like to add to that. I'd say Ritu and me, we are both old school restaurateurs for sure. I wouldn't call her boring at all. I'd say she's one of the more interesting, informative, articulate restaurateurs that I know. But we are both old school. We both have worked hard and are reasonably good at the dining in experience, at the dining business. And as she said, that cannot be replicated at all by us. We are not capable of pivoting and thinking out of the box. We worked hard to be very good at what we do. Our challenge is to survive till dining gets back to some decent levels, and then to continue with what we've pioneered and will continue to be good at.
Right.
I do believe, though, that the delivery business is growing and will really grow. There's huge opportunity there for sure. Perhaps not for companies like ours, which are very good at a different business in the food space. But it's a great opportunity for people who are focusing and have been focusing entirely on that. For us, I think we need to tighten up our costs and minimize our losses through this period and get back to doing what we do best as soon as we can and for the future.
Right. Yeah, because I think you read a lot about cloud kitchens and stuff like that. But I mean, you've got to wonder how long-term that might be for a company as well. Like I would imagine that it works maybe for the time being, but you'd also have to invest a lot of money into it. So your costs would just probably go up, right?
No, I was saying, even if I was to think of cloud kitchen or something, at this moment, for me to invest another euro or another rupee in capex is out of question. Every rupee I have first goes towards paying salaries and paying vendors. So at the moment, at least for me, even if there's a brilliant I'm not willing to risk any capex on a new idea till there's not some sort of a normalcy. Until, as I said, my first priority is to pay what I owe people right now, and after that is the time when one can even think about capex. I don't think any restaurateur would like to make any capital investment at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong, AD.
We don't have it.
Bank
but Jayashree, I'd say for people like us, though, we are old school, we're moralistic as well. Whatever we owe is morally very binding on us. And I think for me, I want to try to get the business back on its feet so that the cash flow can start, and at least all those that we owe can start receiving money from us. It'll take a long time before we're able to clear our debts, but at least we want the process to start, so that gives them some comfort, some help through the tough times they're going through as well. And then a light at the end of the tunnel is there for them to see, for us to see. Hopefully in a year, year and a half, 2 years, we should be reasonably profitable and able to pay everything that we owe to everybody, have them get back on their feet as well.
Right. So what has response been like for your restaurants now that you've opened up?
So we opened 2 restaurants so far in Delhi. Out of the 3, we have opened Diva, GK2, we have opened Latitude in Khan Market. Italian Embassy, unfortunately, we cannot open because it belongs to the Italian land.
Right.
And they have a complete lockdown and we're not allowed to open till end of September. The response has been good, very decent in GK2, but at the end of the day, without alcohol and with 50% seating, it's still a business which is in red. Yeah. It is still not making money after paying what it should. It's the same. So the restaurant, in some ways, the response has been very encouraging. But if you were to talk to me from an accounts point of view or a balance sheet point of view, it is still in red and it'll continue to be in red till the numbers don't come to, because don't forget, people think, restaurant is a great money spinner. When I started in early 90s, people used to say, oh, restaurant business is 100% markup business. They used to think it's the most glamorous business, which is not entirely true. Today, after, salaries in India are not really cheap anymore. Manpower is today coming to more or less international standards. Rentals in India are one of the most expensive in the world. Today, the licenses that we pay fee, it's ridiculous, it's unheard of. So when you put all that together, actually, if a restaurant can make 18 to 20% margin at store level without the HO cost, you should be smiling. So when you're not working with those crazy margins that, okay, that only 40% people are coming and I'm still going to survive without alcohol. Yeah. So that 40% seats are getting filled up. But as I said, the average check is still lower because there's no alcohol. And at the end, which used to be 2.5 turnovers a night, has turned into half turnover a night. So from all perspective, yes, you're doing well, but my accountant would completely and 100% disagree with that.
AD, do you have anything else to add?
No, I do fully agree, with limited capacity. Good thing is that the center has lifted the ban on alcohol, and as of today, Delhi's allowed. Yeah, Delhi's allowed as of today.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is news for me. I didn't even know that. Okay. Nakul gets a meeting.
Goa, Bangalore have already started serving alcohol. Calcutta has already started. So it's coming back to normal now, I'd say. It's only, of course, the necessary reduction in capacity, which places a great strain on us. But as Ritu's observed, the love of our customers and our regulars for what we've built up over so many years still seems to be intact. And that is very promising for the future. We are running at low costs on the HR front and taking our landlord support, which most of them have been very supportive, to try to keep going and keep our losses as tight as possible through this tough period.
So now that restaurants are opening up in other countries and have been for a while, I think Singapore opened them up a couple of months ago. So are there lessons or something that we could learn here, on how they're handling it, how they're dealing with getting their customers back?
Okay, so for me, I don't know I can only do a comparison between Italy and India where I have restaurants. What AD said and what I said before, I think in restaurants like ours, getting customer back is not the challenge. Because over the years, there has been such an amazing, loyal customer base who will come back the minute you open. And same is what we saw even in Milan. We opened here, the restaurants were allowed to open from mid-June. We opened mid-June, and first 2-3 weeks, the restaurants were only about 15%, 20%, also because people in general were not going out. The whole of Milan was empty. It was the worst that I've ever seen. But now, as the numbers have started going down in Italy, Milan is getting full again. The customers are back. They are back. They are happy. And as I said, I could sustain myself and keep my staff here and could pay my rents and could pay my debts because we had government support. So really, there was no lesson per se to be learned. As I said, thankfully, having the customer's support is there. I don't think none of us are worried that our customers are going to forget us and go elsewhere.
Yeah.
The worry is right now to ensure that you can give them the same quality, same service at much lower costs at your end, because there's no way the old costs, which were pre-COVID, can sustain a restaurant anymore. So we all have to tighten our belts. I'm anyway a Marwari, so I'm good at it, but I've also been stretched to levels that I never thought I would go to. But that's the only thing. I think the only key right now that everyone needs to think about in this industry is efficiency, efficiency, and efficiency.
Right. AD?
Yes, Jayashree, I no lesson as such to learn from Singapore. Me and my teams are working hard on creating the same level of experience that our customers had, some freshness, some innovation to give them something new to look forward to, and looking forward to everything getting back to normal soon.
Yeah. So
Cheers.
do you think the pandemic has fundamentally changed how we look at food? Like, I feel the last few years have been quite exciting for food. People are trying to experiment with new cuisines. They're willing to do new things. So do you think now that sort of trajectory has taken a bit of a hit?
If I could answer that, you know that old saying, necessity is the mother of invention. And I think that you will see a lot of innovation, new ideas, maybe as much, maybe more than before in the period ahead.
Right.
Because we'll have to reach customers in new ways, new trends, new habits. I think we'll have an exciting time ahead of us in our food space.
Ritu, what do you think?
Well, for me, I think the most exciting thing that we will see is this emergence of this non-fancy chefs.
Okay.
You know, there's so many people who I know who were great cooks before and purely out of boredom of being stuck at home are doing deliveries of their home cooked meals.
Yeah.
And that is something which I've always felt was, you know, never enough in the country. And in some ways, yes, much as I love a dine-in experience, and that'll always be my priority, but to get, let's say, a woman who only specializes maybe in chola, to be able to order that on a commercial level. So I think the emergence of home cooks, home restaurants, just to give you an example, just in Delhi itself, I mean, some of people who have also worked with me in the past, Aisha, who was a very senior person in our organization, left, and during COVID time, she was working, before COVID, she was working another place, and she started making ice cream during the COVID period,
Right.
Chubby Cheeks. And she's doing, I mean, when I tasted her ice cream, I said, this is heaven. You know, the same way, I mean, there's so many people who are coming up with great produce, food products,
Yeah.
food, but from their homes.
Yeah.
Without having the cost of renting a kitchen. Okay, it's a small business enterprise, but still a very exciting prospect. And those guys have chances of doing better than any of us because their overheads are still bare minimum and they are providing something new, something interesting, something fresh to people because people are also bored of cooking themselves. So when they can order this home cooked meal, which they know as, oh, this is khana from Jharkhand area, there's a snob value to it. And there's also, as I said, a new invention part to it.
Yeah, and I think also that initial enthusiasm of the lockdown cooking has sort of tapered off by now. So
absolutely,
people are looking for
I refuse
food
to cook anymore.
Yeah. So that also, I think, would possibly drive people back to restaurants because just to be able to restart their old routines. So, but I was reading somewhere that I think in India, the dining out average for Indians is between 4 and 7, which is 4 or 7 times a month, which apparently is quite low by global standards. So is that low by global standards first?
Yeah, it is low by global standards, yes. But I don't think this will really go up.
Yeah.
Because Indians are also spoiled. Indians also have domestic help. Indians also have their mommies still cooking for them.
Right.
Okay, so that's also one of the things that drives the number of people who go out in other parts of the world because both couple are working. They have no help at home. You know, they don't have to fend. Either they go home after a day's long work and start cooking, or they go out to eat. So that's another reason why Indian numbers are low. And as I said, I don't see a big jump. I mean, if anything, people are going to be watching what they're going to spend because, okay, there's one part which is the pandemic. There's another part which is the state of the economy.
Yeah.
And Asians by nature are very conservative people. So first thing they do is start cutting out on personal expenses and saving money and, just like I said, not spending money. So the economy situation, every day you hear another news which is graver than the last day.
Yeah.
So I think there will be some cutting down on what people are going to spend where eating out or entertainment or travel anyway is not allowed. So
yeah, I think travel, we still have some way to go.
yes.
So, yeah. AD, do you have anything else to add to that?
When the recession hit in 2008, a lot of my top-end restaurants, Olive, was affected. But we noticed it wasn't that people stopped going out. They were spending, having a lovely pizza, but at a cheaper place. Lesser experience, maybe not as good ingredients, but still going out. Our company, they took the decision, we've opened some very good casual dining restaurants, Soda Bottle, Fatty Bao, etc., which are at much more affordable price points. And we feel there's a good chance that they might just do as well as they were ever doing in this tighter economy ahead of us. So that's what I'm hoping for. I feel the cost of eating out is not much. I'm sure travel, hotel stays, expensive ticket purchases will go down, but I'm hoping that the food business will remain fairly stable.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, even depending on their earnings, they do prioritize eating as one of their experiences. So they are willing to spend on that, even if not on air tickets or whatever. So
air tickets.
Yeah. So, but is there any other like comparable frame of reference for what the industry is going through now, like from the past or even the previous recession, anything?
I have never seen anything like this in my life. I've seen lots of ups and downs in my life.
Right.
I have seen many failures. I always say I'm like that clown bozo, the plastic one. You hit them and I come bouncing right back.
Right.
But I have personally never seen anything like this. But as AD said also before, I've also made peace with the fact that this is part of our life. COVID or Corona, whatever, there will be a 21 maybe next year. I don't know, whatever. But this is a part of our life and we need to learn to live with it, work around it, and not think that one day it'll all just disappear.
Yeah.
So it started with a lot of anger, depression, frustration, but now there's a sense of acceptance that this is how it is. And the only thing you can do is can't beat it, join it, and just work around it.
Okay, so I think that's a pretty good note to end on, that we must accept it. I mean, we have to live with it, we live with it, but...
Absolutely. Life has to go on. And don't forget, there always is a dawn after a dark, dark night.
Yeah. So hopefully
and you
our dawn
and me
is
will be dancing at the end of the rainbow, AD, hand in hand.
If you are, please call in again for a webinar. Yes. I think we need to catch that. So this is the first of what we hope will be a series on the impact of COVID on the industry. So if you like what you see, subscribe to Newslaundry.